Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call this meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order. If you would stand and recite the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, a roll call, please.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Present.
Alderman Milner.
Present.
Alderman Reese.
Present.
Alderman Miller.
Present.
Alderman Dickerson. Here. Alderman Davidson.
Present.
Alderman Turner.
Present.
Alderman Bockelman is absent. Mayor Bowman.
Present, thank you. We do have a quorum. I'd like to welcome you all to our meeting tonight. We have no official ceremonial matters, but Alderman Miller brought to my attention that we have Sergeant Pierce standing in the hallway, and we'd like to have him step into council chambers for just a moment.
Please. No, not at all.
If he looks a little bruised and battered and worn, it's because he participated in a fundraiser for the survivors of police officers who were killed in the line of duty. It's called the Gun and Hoses event. It's a boxing event between the police department, as far as the guns part of it, and the fire department for the hoses portion of the name. And Sergeant Pierce was in that boxing match, did not win, but did very well. And we just want to compliment you and say thank you so much for participating. We're proud of you.
I appreciate it. Oh, that's my friend. Did you come see?
Is this the first year you've done that?
I've done MMA for years. This is the first year I boxed. And the guy had 10 years experience. He had 20 years to his boxing, and I had 10 years. But it was fun, and I should be doing it again in April, probably.
Good. Well, thank you for doing that, and thank you for all you do to keep us safe. We
I
appreciate it.
it.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Miller, for bringing that to my attention. All right, that's the end of our ceremonial matters, so we'll move on to public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the Board of Aldermen this evening? Okay.
Can I stand here or do I?
You may step forward to the podium, and please give your name and address for the record, and we ask you to limit your comments to 4 minutes. Our city attorney will be our timekeeper. Pull the microphone down to you just a little bit so we can all hear you.
And give Randy your name and address. Do what? Give him your name and address right there.
Joanne Bates, 430 Hamlet Drive, Eastern Hill Subdivision, Harrisonville.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Listen, I'm Joanne Bates. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association of the Eastern Hill
Pull your
Subdivision.
microphone to your mouth. Roger, can you help her with the microphone? We have a full house. We want everybody to be able to hear you.
She's always gets on me for this too.
Thank you.
I'm Joanne Bates. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association of the Villas of Eastern Hills. We have had a continuing problem with the drainage pipe that runs behind Village Lane. This is from the runoff of Eastern Hills Parkway. There was a burn that had been built in the subdivision after it was built, as the runoff was getting into a pond at 25608 Lincoln Road. In May of 2011, Creative Contours fixed a section of our walking trail where the drainage pipe dumps out onto, as the drainage had eaten part of the trail at the base of that drainage pipe. A normal rain is like a river shooting out of the pipe that hits that burn and then contains the water, and the water will run several inches high. On a big rain, it's like a rolling river coming out of that pipe and can run off 12 to 15-inch rocks several feet down the walking trail. Our last problem was from the storm that we had on 9/28 of this year. The storm was like the rabbits, they said, rolling out of that drainage pipe. and it tore up a big section of the walking trail behind 509 Village Lane. It also ran down behind the houses of 509 and 511 Village Lane, and they said that the water was several feet deep. There are grates on top of the walking trail where it'll have to hold the water to go into a pipe. Those grates were found at the end of the walking trail that curves around behind the street of Abbey. There is a pond behind the house of 25614 Lincoln Road, and those were in those drainage, or
Great.
the grates were found in their yard. I do have copies of the damage that was done to the walking trail that I can leave for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
certainly. Thank you very much, Joanne. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening?
Well, we just are concerned with the way that water rushes out of that pipe down there. It's just like the rapids of Colorado coming out of there. And it just takes the rocks that have been there to make it, to control that wash a little bit. It just takes them and washes them down the trail.
Okay,
And so it's just kind of a manner of, we want you to be aware of what's going on there and see if there's any resolve to
Okay.
anything.
thank you. You can step forward, sir.
Good evening. John Pruitt. I live at 509 Village Lane. Mayor
Good
and
evening,
Aldermen.
sir.
Good evening. I've lived here in Harrisonville for 40 years and just recently purchased the property, 509 Village Lane. We moved in August 31st, less than a month before this tidal wave came. And I can attest to the fact that it was horrific. We've got a, in my estimation, about a 20-inch sewer drain that empties out behind the neighbor to the north's house. And all that water coming off of Heritage Lane there's three street drainage areas or sewers. They daylight there. And it comes out and the water is supposed to, I guess, fit into a 5 or 6 inch foundation drain that goes underneath that walkway. And you get 20 inches of plus water going into a 6-inch lane. It just doesn't work. And so that's the reason for the runoff. And of course, water follows the path of least resistance, runs right down that walking trail. And it really tore up the walking trail behind our house. It's not what I bargained for.
I'm sure.
And we'd like to have something, either the city or state or county, whoever is responsible to address the issue and see if we can't manage it a whole lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, are you the homeowners association representative for your development out there still?
Yes,
You are?
I'm the
Okay.
president.
Okay. And have you been in touch with our staff regarding this matter?
I spoke with April, and she was supposed to have Eric Patterson call me. He was out, but I haven't got any return phone calls.
Okay.
Matt Martin, I think, is the other guy and I haven't gotten a response from that either.
Okay, that would be Ted Martin, and he's...
Ted Martin, yes.
Yeah, he's our city engineer and our stormwater manager, so...
Yes, I have not, I spoke with him on the phone. He said that he would check it out and call me back, but I have not heard anything.
Okay.
We'll make certain that Mr. Patterson follows up with you and Mr. Martin as well and see what kind of issues we can address for you. Don't know at this point, I'm not the professionals, but we'll certainly have them follow up with you and Mr. Pruitt, if you all want to leave your phone numbers here, the best numbers to reach you before you leave, that would just write them on a piece of paper and leave them with us. That would be great.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Step forward. Welcome.
Hello, my name's Kimberly Wirtz, and I live in a different area of the same neighborhood.
What was your last name?
Wirtz,
Wirtz.
Wirths.
Okay.
And that evening.
And your address?
My address is 2904 Eastern Hills Parkway.
Okay, thank you.
And that day that the rain started, my sister and I took a drive around the neighborhood, and along Abbey, there is a large drainage area that rain rushes through substantially, and two recessed areas on either side of that. And they were, the purpose of that is for retention of overflow of rainwater, but they were literally full to the capacity of a pond, each of them. And then that evening, additional rain came, and so I'm sure that they became even more saturated. The following morning, I took a walk around the trail, and I headed down towards I went around this way to Abbey Lane, and that house on the corner had rocks from their yard that had literally washed out from the corner of their yard across the trail and down into the woods back behind their house because the rain there was so forceful. And then continued down Abbey Lane, and as I rounded that corner, they're referring to the damage to the trail. There literally was a chunk of asphalt this big, that thick, and at first I thought it was just a big clump of dirt. And I continued walking, and there was another, a little larger actually. And these are quite a distance from where the damage of the trail is. And then a short while later, I saw yet another. And so I just want to express the size of the chunks of asphalt that this water moved. We're talking big chunks of asphalt, and that it had carried all the way down that trail. And there were several more pieces along the way, and then when you got to the section of the damaged trail, it's completely buckled, crumbled. Clearly there were missing chunks of asphalt. When Joanne said that it dislodged rocks that were around the drainage pipe area, they were very large rocks. They weren't just rocks. They were large rocks that had been dislodged. And so the force of the water did significant damage in terms of moving those. And so I just wanted to express the size of what was really moved by that water.
Yes, indeed.
It was significant.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Just give him the pictures that Joanne.
Yes, that'd be fine. And just is Joanne's phone number on there somewhere?
I'll put it on there.
Perfect. Is there anyone else from, okay, step forward, please. Welcome.
Beverly Floyd.
What was the last name? I'm sorry.
Floyd,
Floyd, okay.
504 Hamlet. My question to the members here is it standard policy for the street storm sewers to daylight into someone's yard? Because that's basically what this pipe is. It's a pipe that goes out and it comes out at the back of some of the yards. And I don't know of any other place in the city where the street storm sewers are daylighting into a yard.
Have you been in, has our street superintendent been out to visit with any of you all?
I'm not sure what all contact Joanne has made.
Okay.
Well, I was told that it was not the street department, that it was whenever I was there at the school, I was told that it was under Eric Patterson, and that's who I've spoken
Okay,
with.
and that's true, the street department is under the Public Works Director. So I have a comment, but I want to first of all allow anybody else from the neighborhood that wants to address the board, feel free to step forward at this time. Okay. September 28th is a day that we all remember well because it was the day of the flash flood in Harrisonville, that depending on where you were in the city, we received anywhere between 3 and 6 inches of rain over a very short period of time, less than 2 hours. And we've learned that there's been a lot of media attention to the area down by Trade Fair and the southern part of town. But what we learned in this particular rain event was that there were parts of the city, there were other parts of the city that had a lot of water also. A lot of those parts of the city were areas that hadn't had that kind of impact before. So it is a public works issue, and I'm glad that Joanne, that you're in touch with our public works department, and we'll just ask for the staff to follow up with you, and then the staff will report back to the board with what they uncover and what their recommendations are. So thank you all. Anyone else that wants to speak to the board? All right, seeing no one, I'll close public participation. And at this point, I'd ask you to please mute or silent your cell phones. We'll move on to our approval of the minutes. First of all are the minutes from the work session, October 21st.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Davidson with a second from Alderman Dorhoff to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Thank you, those minutes are approved. The minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen, October 21st, 2019.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
A motion from Alderman Dorhoff, a second from Alderman Davidson to approve the minutes of the regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nay. Those minutes are approved. And then moving on to the minutes of the budget meeting, October 29th, 2019.
Move to approve?
Motion from Alderman Milner,
Second.
second from Alderman Davidson. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Those minutes stand approved. Moving on to the agenda items. Who's doing this one?
We have a vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Mayor Bowen is recommending the reappointment of Scott Milner to the P&Z.
I make that motion.
Second.
I need to abstain from this.
Okay. A motion from Alderman Dickerson with a second from Alderman Miller and an abstention with Alderman Milner. All in favor of the reappointment of Scott Milner to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. That reappointment stands approved. All right, Mr. Crowe, a public hearing on the renter rezoning.
Thank you. This is an application from Brian and Karen Renner. Their representative, Eric Collins, their attorney is here this evening. The renters were not able to be here because of some private matters. The application is this area here at 1600 Mechanic Street. Mechanic Street's right here. Here's the railroad. Here's Crop Production Services. Now the sign says Neutral right here. Plaza Drive, 49. The area that we're talking about is 6.9 acres, almost 7 acres, right here. It starts down here where the building is that Wilson Plumbing Supply is in. They're a tenant there, but it also includes this 5.5 acres behind here. What the applicant is asking to do is, this area has never been platted, so what the applicant is asking to do is plat the property. So that's why we have a preliminary plat and a final plat on the agenda, and then rezone it. Right now it has two different zonings on it. C2 general commercial on Mechanic Street, and then behind it is M1 Light Industrial. What the applicant is asking to do is plat it, divide it into 2 tracts, one being where the building is that Wendelson is in, and the other being the tract that's behind it. Rezone the M1 to C2 so that the entire tract is the same general commercial zoning. What the applicant then wants to do is sell this building that fronts onto Commercial Street to an investor who will own the building. You know, I don't know what the arrangement might be with Wendelson, they're a tenant. But then on the tract behind, develop mini storage. When we looked at this, one of the first things that we had to think through is if this tract is sold, this tract loses its public access. Anticipating this, what the applicant had been doing all along was working on a shared access easement with Crop Production Services so that they would take access off, that this tract would take access off of this drive. And for the intended use that was proposed, light industrial, we think in this situation, I mean, it's rare that we allow a tract to not have access directly to a public street. But for this kind of a use, mini storage, and with the shared access, which we asked our counselor's office to look at, who thinks that it's as tight as it can be so that something can't happen in the future where they lose access without both parties agreeing. We think that this is an appropriate use for this location. I mean, mini storage is something that every community needs, but nobody wants it right on your main commercial corridors. That's why you often see it behind, kind of as a second tier use, which is what we have here. We've got the commercial buildings here. We've got former railroad right-of-way here that's never been developed. We've got the industrial use, Crop Production Services here. And it's a very low, very few vehicles per day kind of use. So given all those, oh, and one more thing. There is also a 6-inch high-pressure gas main that goes across the middle of it. So given all those reasons, we think it's probably about as good a location as you can have for mini storage. And so that's why we supported it to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval. There are a number of stipulations. As the mayor said, the rezoning is a public hearing. The plats each have 6 stipulations that all stormwater construction plans have to meet the city's requirements. With regard to the gas line, when the gas line went in, they just have a blanket easement that the easement encompasses the entire property, and the high pressure gas line could be anywhere on there. That's no longer allowed, and state statute no longer allows that. So one of the stipulations that you see in here is that the gas company and the owner have to specify on the plat whatever wide area through there, 50 feet, 25 feet. I understand from Mr. Collins that their engineers are already working on it. But one of the stipulations that we have here is that the final plat wouldn't be signed until the gas company and the renters reach agreement on the width and get that easement on the plat, as opposed to it just being a blanket easement. I guess that's all my comments. Again, the rezoning is a public hearing. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Roger, just for the record, I know I asked you this earlier about the gravel driveway that currently serves the old mill, or whatever it's called now. It will become a hard surface road to this property.
Now, this will be new construction.
Right.
And so that any of the drives in the mini storage area or the drive that leads up to it will have to be hard surface.
But it'll stop there, it won't continue to?
We wouldn't require it on into Crop Production Services. Or our regulations wouldn't require it.
So then they'll split off before they get that final fence before crop production?
Yes, the easement, it's somewhere in here, right along here where anybody going to the mini storage would take a left-hand turn and go in.
And Crop Production Services owns that drive.
They own that drive and they've granted a shared access agreement. Shared access easement.
Is there any other M1 area in zoning in that area? I mean, all,
Yeah.
most,
Yeah, in fact, here's the C2 all along commercial. The M2, there's some M2 right here, and that must go back a long time, the heavy industrial. Not sure what was going on at that time. But this area, and even still this area, is M1. And this area for right now will stay M1. I do know that the chiropractor, Dr. Parks, is anticipating wanting to develop land that he owns here, also with mini storage. So you'll probably be seeing an application from him to rezone that C2.
I have a question. Okay, so the short access drive, we're making them require hard pavement all the way up to the mini storage. Which, and that's what I'm saying. Then after that, who maintains that? I mean, since it's actually owned by the other company.
That would be it would not be the city.
Right.
It would be between the two parties who have the shared access agreement.
So, I guess, I mean, they should have it worked out beforehand, but, so, okay. I'm just curious if they know.
Both
who's
parties are gonna have to
maintain it.
agree to the pavement. Both parties are gonna have to agree to the portion that I would foresee needing to be paved.
Okay.
and maintenance, I'm assuming it would be part of the, I think that's where you're getting at, is the,
Right, that's what
it's
I'm-
not the first year, but the fifth and 10th year as far as maintenance goes.
Who's in charge of it?
You know, that would be between them. That would not be our responsibility.
Thank you, good discussion. Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this matter? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Sorry, I apologize, Mr. Collins. Please forgive me, I did not see your hand. I'll
Not
take
at
my
all.
gavel back.
Not at all. And sometimes it's hard for an attorney just to know when to sit down and not talk. Madam Mayor, members of the board, there's not much I can add here. I think staff's comments were a fair characterization of what we've done to this point. And I do want to say, Mr. Crow has been a delight to work with this process. We started this back in March of this year, and now here we stand today, some 8 months later, if my math is right, and he has been a great resource and very patient as this process developed. A couple of the things that I want to just reiterate. My clients, the renters, do wish they could be here tonight, but unfortunately that just isn't possible right now. They asked me for y'all to forgive their absence and extend their regrets for not being here. All the stipulations the staff has proposed are fine with the applicants. To Mr. Crow's earlier point, we have been in touch with Spire Energy. Spire Energy has agreed to confine their easement to a defined area. There's still some question with their engineering department what that defined area will be, but we anticipate having that done in 2 weeks, so that's going to go rather quickly. In terms of maintenance of the easement area, the current access easement already addresses the maintenance issue, and it does place maintenance responsibilities on the grantor, so on Nutrien for the time being. However, if the grantee, the renter's use of that property causes the damage or decay to the easement area, it becomes their responsibility. So the parties have agreed to kind of that shared maintenance, if you will, at the outset. And frankly, if we could get, the folks on the ground have been in agreement with this thing really since March. some of the delay in getting this easement signed and recorded really just related to tracking down people with the authority to sign the thing and get it in here for recording. I really think that's all that I have to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about either the requested zoning change or not to get the cart too far ahead of the horse, the proposed plats.
Is the gas line gonna remain on that property?
It will. It will. And so that obviously has some real impact on the ability to develop this parcel further. And the cost of moving that gas line is extraordinary. That was an option that has been explored, and it's unworkable. One point that I will make, if there were ever be a proposal to replat what is now Lot 2, where that's going to be taken to C2, the applicant will be required to dedicate public road access out to Mechanic.
Any other comments from the board? Anyone else wish
Thank you
to
all.
speak?
Thank you.
Now I will officially close the public hearing. And we'll move on to Council Bill 67.
Council Bill 67, an ordinance of the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri, rezoning the approximately 6.29 acre Renner Place at 1600 West Mechanic Street from M1 Light Industrial District zoning to C2 Service Business District zoning.
I make a motion to move Council Bill 67 to its second reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Dickerson with a second from Alderman Milner to suspend the rule and advance Council Bill 67 to its second reading. May I have a roll call?
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Bockelman is absent.
Thank you. Second reading.
Council Bill 67, an ordinance of the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri, rezoning the approximately 6.29 acre Renner Place at 1600 West Mechanic Street from M1 Light Industrial District zoning to C2 Service Business District zoning.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
and Alderman Bockelman absent.
Thank you. Council Bill 67 passes and becomes ordinance number 3478. Moving on to Council Bill 68.
Council Bill 68, a resolution of the City of Harrisonville approving the preliminary plat of Renner Place lots 1 and 2, a 6.29 acre subdivision of land at 1600 West Mechanic Street in the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
I make a motion to approve Council Bill 68.
I have a motion from Alderman Dickerson with a second from Alderman Miller to approve Council Bill 68. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Council Bill 68 becomes Resolution 044. Council Bill 69.
Council Bill 69, an ordinance to approve the final plat of Renner Place lots 1 and 2, a 6.29 acre subdivision at 1600 West Mechanic Street in the City of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
I make a motion to suspend the rule and move Council Bill 69 to reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Dickerson with a second from Alderman Reese to suspend the rule and advance Council Bill 69 to a second reading. Roll call, please.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Bockelman absent.
Thank you. Second reading.
Council Bill 69, an ordinance to approve the final plat of Renner Place Lots 1 and 2, a 6.29 acre subdivision at 1600 West Mechanic Street in the city of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
Roll call.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Bockelman, absent.
Thank you. Council Bill 69 is passed and becomes ordinance number 3479. Council Bill 70.
Council Bill 70, a resolution of the city of Harrisonville approving the preliminary plat of Harrisonville Town Center, second plat, a 20-acre plat at the southwest corner of Lindbergh Street and South Commercial Street in the city of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
Mr. Crowe.
The site that we're talking about, I'm sure you're all familiar with, is Sutherland's, this is Russell Stover's. It's the this was originally, Harrisonville Town Center was originally a 42-acre project. This developed out, this is not for a number of years, so we're talking about the 22 acres that is immediately north of Sutherland's and Russell Stover's. The owner of it is Security Bank. Their representative, Kim Barbalos, is here this evening with us. It currently is zone C2. We don't need to do any rezoning for this project, but what they're asking for is preliminary plat approval because the preliminary plat did expire and needed to be renewed. And then also final plat approval for, just for the 20 acres. Really it divides up into kind of two general areas. One is the 3 pad sites that they're asking for that front Commercial Street take up about 3.5 acres. The remaining 16.5 acres take up the west 2/3 of the project. The reason that the applicant is asking for final plat approval is primarily for the 3 pad sites up along Commercial. They have a contract with Dollar General for the middle pad site. Have a contract with Dollar General for the middle pad site, which would take direct access off of Commercial Street in the beginning until this develops out. What we have in the stipulations in your staff report is that there will be the one access in and out for Dollar General, which is a 7,500 square foot building. I think about 172 trips a day is what they're projecting. And then when the second pad site, which they don't know yet whether it will be this one to the north or this one to the south develops, the road will have to be the drive. And there's a drive that runs from Lindbergh, north-south drive that runs from Lindbergh down to this drive that goes into Sutherland's that will match up with the north-south drive that's currently in Sutherland's. That drive will have to be partially built when the second pad site develops. And again, right now, I don't think they have a buyer for a second pad site. And then it will have to be fully built out all the way from Lindbergh to Sutherland's when either the third pad site builds or the west 2/3 of the project builds out. On the Dollar General, again, 7,500 square feet. They hope to get started as soon as possible. We asked them to upgrade to the texturized, on a lot of the Dollar Generals that you'll see, they'll have metal siding on the 3 sides. In this case, this building will be seen from all different directions because it's up along Commercial, and then there'll be a lot of traffic in the future behind it. So we asked them to upgrade to the kind of the texturized stucco siding that they sometimes use, and then also they're going to put split block on the front of the store. In terms of the larger plat, the full plat, what's shown here in the preliminary plat, I think could be described as placeholders. Their best guess of what would develop there. It's very similar to what was proposed before, but this may change. And as they have tenants or potential, purchasers of the property they'll be coming back in, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we see some revised final plans based upon the needs of people that eventually purchase the ground. But they are showing that this western end of the project for detention, for the 2/3 of the site that drains to the west, detention for the pad sites, these three, there's kind of a ridge line, a high point through here that separates the east from the west. The 3.5 acres on the east drains it toward Commercial Street, and then into Muddy Creek Tributary too. I know I suck. God. I'm a high school graduate. But anyway, one thing that the mayor and the chairman of the planning commission asked the applicants to do with regard to Dollar General was look into having its detention, which the detention area for Dollar General is at the back of the property, but having it drain to the west as opposed to the east toward Commercial. The applicant has looked into that. What they have advised us is for them to, our city engineer said it could be constructed. I mean, what they would have to do would bring a ditch or a pipe all the way back here, then go around the back of Sutherland's, and they would have to acquire an easement, which they'll eventually have to if they want to develop this back half, because there's private property between this tract and Muddy Creek. So they'd have the cost of either trenching or piping, acquiring an easement, updating the drainage study. But our city engineer said theoretically it could be constructed to drain to the west. The applicants took a look at it. Anderson Engineering, Troy Bowers people estimated that the cost would be $200,000 to do that at this point in time. And they also pointed out, there's two engineers working on it. The other engineer did the stormwater report. It's Overland Engineering, and they pointed out that they have oversized the detention area on Dollar General to the point where it detains all of the additional runoff that's being created by the Dollar General, the building, and the parking lot, and then also 47% of the existing runoff. So again, they're detaining 47% of the rain that falls on that grass tract now, which they're not required to do. So they're detaining half of that plus any additional runoff that's created by the building and the parking lot. So primarily because of the cost, because they are over detaining quite a bit, and also that I think it would kill the deal, they contend, if they had to go to the west with the Dollar General site. They're asking that they not be required to do that. And from our point of view, we would support that. We don't think that we should be requiring that when they've taken the steps that they already have. Now in the future, as the other two pad sites come in, we'll have to take a look at their detention, but anything on the 16.5 acres will have to go to the west, the majority of the site. What else on there? On both the plats, you'll see that we have quite a few stipulations. They're the normal ones, that they have to meet the stormwater management requirements, all FEMA requirements, meet all of our construction requirements. There'll have to be cross-access easement on the entire 22 acres, and that the sidewalk, there's currently a sidewalk with a missing segment along Commercial, and they're going to have to end. They've agreed to complete that sidewalk up to Lindbergh. So with that, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of both the preliminary plat and the final plat. Be happy to answer any questions.
Have Chad looked at their water design? And he's good with it?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't meet the 47% that they say that they're gonna take of the existing, what happens? I mean, if it doesn't meet what they say it's gonna meet,
They'll have to build it so that it does.
so we can't hold them to that,
We can hold them to that.
so we don't need any more water going that way. Yeah.
No.
I mean, that's just all there is to it, so.
So,
We can hold them to what they have designed and what they have referenced in the stormwater management plan.
Which includes that they are guaranteeing that they can,
47% of the peak water flow,
current.
current.
Okay.
Well, I mean, this is the amount that's coming off the Dollar General site. And when the other sites develop, then we'll have to go through the same process.
Sure.
They're talking like central.
Alderman Milner, go ahead.
just to make sure I am following along, so the original three will face commercial
Mhm.
with an additional entrance put in.
Correct.
They won't be using the Sutherland's entrances,
Not in the beginning.
correct? So then, am I looking at this correctly, that there could possibly be a road going behind those three to connect into that second parcel?
That is the plan. That is the plan.
So if that is the plan, then where is the retention at?
The retention right now is on the west side of the, Dollar General building.
Where the street will be?
No.
Okay.
Um,
There will be enough space in
Yeah.
between there. Okay, that's what I was trying to figure
Yeah.
out. Okay.
So between the Dollar General and the road.
Right.
And if, the north lot is developed first, then the road will be finished from Lindbergh to behind Dollar General. If lot 3 is finished first, then it would be from, the Sutherland's to the end of Dollar General.
Right. Yeah, it would have to be continued to the end of the second lot.
Correct.
So, Alderman Turner and Alderman Davidson and myself have been down in that neighborhood quite a bit and talked to people in the Walker Addition and Trade Fair and down there where all those losses were. I felt it was just something that I needed to do to ask if that stormwater release could be to the west, to Muddy Creek, and not to the tributary. I felt that those people, the southern part of town, had lost a lot, and that if there was any way that we could redirect that stormwater to the Muddy Creek instead of to the tributary, that we needed to do that. Kim, I want to thank you for taking that request to your engineers. I'm sorry that it was such an expensive thing to do, but certainly appreciate you taking it to your engineers. We will welcome Dollar General to town, and I know that the people in the city will do that too. We just felt that we had to do our due diligence and ask the question on behalf of the people in that area that have been so impacted by stormwater down there in that part of town. I hope you understand that, and I hope you'll communicate that to your client. What are you thinking, board?
So, Roger, the last rain event that we had in September, that adequate.
Will you use your microphone, please?
Sorry about that. The last rain event that we had in September, would this retention area adequately hold that?
I'm gonna have to let the city engineer respond to that one. I mean, it would improve the situation, but I think that was more, your ordinances, our ordinances require them to detain for a 1 year and a 10-year storm. And that's what we're talking about here. I think that storm was more than a 10-year, more than a 100-year storm. But it would retain more water than what was being retained when it happened before.
I guess my only fear would be, God forbid we'd have another one of those storms, but you never know, is if that pond, if that retention area were to fill up and then overflow, it's gonna go straight toward, it's gonna go straight, if I'm looking at this
It's gonna go
correctly,
east.
You're
straight
correct.
toward the hotel, correct? It's gonna go straight.
That's the direction it's gonna go now.
Okay.
If we have another rain event like we did, this will hold back more water after it's constructed than what it currently does. Will you notice a difference? Probably not, because it's a small lot.
But once you put all the concrete and asphalt in there.
It will hold, well, but what they're proposing for detention will hold more water than what that site runs off currently.
So it won't cause any
It won't
worsening effect.
worsen it.
Okay.
It just won't make an appreciable difference in.
Okay. So make sure it doesn't make it worse.
Can I assume then the parking lot, I mean, you won't be able to see it, but the parking lot is gonna have a higher elevation on the front or towards the commercial side than to the back or the west side to the
No.
detention pond?
No.
Okay, then how is it going to ensure
Because
that?
it's gonna hold back some of the water from the lots next to it also, not just on that lot.
So all the water in the parking lot is gonna,
Not all of it. Part of it will still go to commercial.
I make a motion to approve Council Bill 70.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Dickerson with a second from Alderman Milner to approve Council Bill 70. I'm sorry, Miller, I apologize.
Been called worse.
So I'll restate that. I have a motion from Alderman Dickerson with a second from Alderman Miller to approve Council Bill 70. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Council Bill 70 becomes Resolution 045. Council Bill 71.
Council Bill 71, an ordinance approving the final plat of Harrisonville Town Center, second plat, a 20-acre plat at the southwest corner of Lindbergh Street and South Commercial Street in the city of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
Anything to add? Okay.
I make a motion, we suspend the rules and move it to second reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Turner with a second from Alderman Dickerson to suspend the rule on Council Bill 71 and advance it to its second reading. Roll call, please.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
aye,
Alderman Reese, Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Bockelman is absent.
Second reading.
Council Bill 71, an ordinance approving the final plat of Harrisonville Town Center, second plat, a 20-acre plat at the southwest corner of Lindbergh Street and South Commercial Street in the city of Harrisonville, Cass County, Missouri.
Roll call.
Alderman Dickerson,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
aye,
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Bockelman absent.
Thank you. Council Bill 71 becomes ordinance number 3480. Council Bill 72.
Council Bill 72, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Harrisonville as follows. Chapter 700, Section 700.530, by establishing new rates for municipal electric services.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. What I'm handing out is the same thing that you were given a few weeks ago. Everybody did not bring a copy, so someone was nice enough to. Basically, the ordinance that you're seeing is exactly what we talked about in our work session. As far as an individual residence goes, you're talking about a $2.73 a month increase, whether you don't use any electricity that month or whether you use as much as Walmart. As far as the house goes, it's just a $2.73 a month increase. But I would be more than happy to try and answer any other questions you have.
What's the basis for the increase?
One of the things is solar customers.
What is it?
Solar customers. We are not allowed to charge a solar customer any more base rate than what we charge a regular citizen. our rates are so low that, our base rate is so low that the usage charge is what pays for 90-something% of the fund's expenses. It would be nice, because we still have the same amount of maintenance to do on every solar house, and usually more, but we're trying to do that for $4.27 a month. That's one of the big, we also were looking at the possibility of having to add a 4th substation. This will go towards that.
So I had asked the other day, and you weren't here, I think I was talking to Mike about it. It was 11 years ago since we've had an increase, is that correct? If I'm looking at this correct, 2008?
2010, I think.
2008.
Was when we went to 427, so it's been 11 years since we've had an increase whatsoever in the base rate.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
One thing I would like to point out, when we discussed, before we got into actual budget stuff, when we were talking about the potential utility rate changes for the electric utility, we talked about in future years having this also have a kind of an automatic 1% increase every year. That is not part of this ordinance. The ordinance that you have in front of you.
No, it does not include that, and that was intentional.
We've talked about what our utility looks like right now. We talked about when we're going to be having the debt service fall off after next year. So this ordinance is only affecting that base rate.
Okay.
We believe that our cost of power is projected to be fairly stable, and that this is going to work for us, and we want to basically give that a chance. The recommendation that the top people had, and we discussed, was do something every year so that you don't get too far out of whack, which makes sense. And I think what we're saying is we're going to look at it every year, but we're not going to put an automatic rate increase every year in. We're going to just look at it every year. But right now, we're saying just this base rate only, no increase on the energy charges.
Correct.
I'd like to remind the board too, also, you have Pleasant Hill and all these other cities back there. Those cities that are listed do not own their own utility. We own our utility. And I know at least, maybe the 11 years prior, we were probably the second or third highest rated utility in the state of Missouri. And it was that way for a long time until the last meeting we had with the MPUA. And he said now that we were going to start to enjoy a lower cost of.
And with this, we are still a lower cost.
Well, now we are. But it wasn't that way 11 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever. It was the highest.
Right. But we are no longer in that position.
It was a big topic
and this
of
will still
conversation.
keep us.
I'm
This will
sorry.
still keep us low.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we should be low. We own our utility. That's the point of owning it. I'm sure Mike remembers several years ago when they wanted to disconnect from MPUA, and it's quite a process to go through. You have to find somebody to take our place, plus it costs us 5 years worth of bills to disconnect from that.
Could I please ask the alderman to use your microphones so that everyone can hear and so that it comes through on the tape recording, please? Thank you.
Here, I see the, pardon me, I see the comparison rates for sewer and water, but I don't see, I thought we had the comparison rates for
Should be the
electricity,
first.
didn't we?
Should be the first 4 or 5 pages. I think the first 3 pages is a history of just Harrisonville's. And then if you look, starting on the 4th page, you'll see there's Osage Valley.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Uh-huh.
So in comparison to Osage Valley, we are even with an increase.
We're well below.
And Kansas Power and Light, $11.57, I believe.
Correct.
Something like that, yeah.
So this rate increase is just on the base?
Correct.
Right.
Like I said, no matter how
The-
much power you use, for a house, it will only be $2.73 a month.
So there's no increase to the energy charge?
Correct.
And that 1%? I mean,
That's not in there, we're not
that's
doing
not-
it this year.
That's next year.
That's been removed.
We may not do it next year, we'll just see how it goes.
See how this goes.
I think that's a very workable compromise for us. I applaud staff for doing that. Mike, thank you. Not necessarily, we utilize the experience and knowledge of TOP, but our staff, realize that we don't necessarily need to incur an additional 1% every year without stepping back and taking a look at it. So I applaud staff for that. All right. So where are we at on Council Bill 72? Looking for a motion.
I would make a motion to move this to second reading.
Okay.
Second.
All right, have a motion from Alderman Milner with a second from Alderman Reese to advance Council Bill 72 to suspend the rule and advance Council Bill 72 to its second reading. Roll call, please.
Alderman Dickerson. Nay. Alderman Davidson.
Aye.
Alderman Reese.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Nay.
Alderman Dorhoff.
Aye.
Alderman Milner.
Aye.
Alderman Turner.
Nay.
And Alderman Bachman. Absent.
Okay, this ordinance does not pass.
That's the second reading.
The motion was to suspend the rules to go to second reading. So this was first reading, it was 4-3. We'll have second reading on this ordinance at the next regular council meeting, which would be November the 18th.
Thank you. Moving on to Council Bill 73.
Council Bill 73, an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Harrisonville as follows. Chapter 700, Section 700.460, by establishing new rates for municipal sewer services.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Again, this is the same thing that we talked about at our last work session. This is just a sewer increase only, not water. Currently, our sewer charges do not come close to paying our sewer expenses. Because of that, we are not able to do any capital improvements on the water system or the sewer system, because the rates from the water are having to carry the sewer expenses. What this will do, this is a partial increase. This will at least give us the funds to start the engineering, which is something that DNR is mandating we have done. They would like construction done by 2021. There's no way we could meet that. But with this, we can at least get the engineering portion done, and that will somewhat satisfy DNR that we are working on it, and they will give us an extension more than likely.
So the increase is, can we get into discussion?
Certainly.
The increase is to fund the study?
It's to fund the sewer department, sanitary sewer. This year, it will fund the engineering. Next year's, it will pay for improvements and things that aren't being done currently.
So we don't know right now why you want the increase. I mean, this is gonna fund the study, and then you say we're gonna have another increase past that?
I'm saying there could be. We have not received the final rate study from Burns and McDonnell on water and sewer rates.
And how much is the rate study gonna cost?
I don't remember off the top of my head. It's right around the $30,000 mark. But in preliminary discussions with them, they have assured me that I am not too high. And that's all this was. This was just an interim to get us through so that we could start on the path to keep DNR at bay.
Because if we don't do anything, we could be fined by DNR, is that correct?
We could be fined by them. They could in theory come in and shut our sewer plant down. No, you're right, they probably won't do that, but that is in their toolbox of things they can do.
Well, they can't do anything until we get the studies in place, correct?
Yeah,
And why
we've been
haven't-
told.
They
Well, I
can.
mean- Okay, I'm sorry. So why haven't we done the study?
Because there hasn't been money to do the studies. If you'll remember, last year, we talked about increasing sewer rates. In fact, we even took a vote that passed
Yes,
and then rescinded it.
yes.
We were looking at doing the study back then.
Okay, and I probably don't have this right, but at the end of, the sewer, combined sewer and water fund, I believe it says project ending unrestricted balance of $3,693,123. So why aren't we using some of that to do the study, and then you come and ask us for a rate increase?
Because
Then we'll understand what the rate increase is for. Right now, we're just funding a rate increase, we're funding a study, not a rate increase.
we're funding actual engineering
I
to satisfy
understand
DNR,
that. I
which
understand that.
includes disinfection. We are one of the last cities.
All right, I got all that. What I'm just saying is, we have money here to fund a study. And
We have
then
money there.
and then, when the study's over, you bring it back to us and say, all right, here's what's got to be done, because Burns and McDonald have said, these are the problems. And then, we vote on a rate increase.
But you're asking again, the water rates to continue paying for the
Well,
sewer.
I know that.
And we have got substantial water infrastructure things coming up. We will have to redo the 7.5 mile raw water line. That's somewhere between $7 and $9 million more than likely. We've got the spillway to take care of that's over $1 million.
I agree. I understand all that, but all I'm asking is, I don't wanna vote for this and not know that we are directly what I'm voting for, what the people are gonna have to pay for.
That's exactly what they're
study-
paying for at this point. If we don't do this now, when it comes time to do the improvements at the plant, and we go for a loan from SRF, just like with the water, they're going to say, well, show us your rates and show us your expenses. And they're gonna come back and say, well, they don't cover. The old days, you used to be able to say, well, it's a combined fund and the water's gonna back up the sewer. That's not the case anymore. They want them separate.
Well, I understand that. I
And
know
you're
they-
gonna have, instead of this raise, you're gonna have something much larger.
I understand that, and I'm not talking about that, and I'm just gonna say this one more time, because I don't wanna argue with Eric, because I do like him a whole lot. But what I could support is when you have the study finished, and you come and tell me what they have said we need. Up till that, I can't support this without them saying what we need. That's all I gotta say, because I don't wanna argue with you.
I think Mr. Tholen wants to make a comment. Go ahead, Mike.
You recall also in our earlier discussions where on that same sheet that you were looking at that showed the ending fund balance, you also up above show the revenue and expenditure projected for this next year. And it is, including the increase in the sewer rate, still is a negative position for the year. And as we've discussed, we have to be able to show for SRF purposes, we have to be able to show that the utilities are bringing in enough revenue to cover their operations. And we're not quite doing that.
Yeah, well.
And so if you want to have, the advantage of the funding help from DNR through the SRF program, you have to do these rates.
Like I said, if it's 30 or 40 or 100, we have money to do the study first, and then come and ask me for a rate increase when we have the study done. That's all I'm gonna say, you guys decide what you wanna do, but that's how I feel.
Here, Roger, or Eric, what was the last increase that we had?
Gosh, I don't remember the date of the last increase.
2014.
2014, so I don't think things have gotten much cheaper since 2014.
No.
I looked at the figures that you provided and for the other surrounding cities, and I just noticed that only Archie, who has a population of 1,200 people, has sewer rates lower than Harrisonville. Every other surrounding city is higher, and some of them quite a bit higher than we are. If I recall, when we were at the Missouri Municipal League, I believe Missouri DNR was talking about the fact that SRF interest rate is really low right now. So we certainly want to be able to take advantage of.
And they are generally the lowest place
Right.
to go.
Right. We don't want to have to get a loan from a bank.
And unlike your house loan or car loan, fractions of a point percentage, it's real dollars when you're talking about this kind of money.
That's a good question, just because, and we may have talked about this earlier, but is there at some point, how do we separate these two? Do we have to do it by ordinance, or is this what we're doing at this moment? We're separating.
What we have to do is they have a,
Water and sewer.
they have, they call it a model, it's basically a worksheet where you put in your expenses
Okay,
and you put in what you actually, take in for income on sewer,
okay,
which we keep all that separate in income. It's one fund, but we keep all those expenses separate.
okay, and that's what they have to see
Yes.
to be able to do this, okay.
Any other discussion on this council bill? I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we move this to second reading.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Milner with a second from Alderman Davidson to advance Council Bill 73 to its second read, to suspend the rule and advance Council Bill 73 to its second reading. Roll call, please.
Alderman Reese,
Aye.
Alderman Davidson,
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff,
Aye.
Alderman Miller,
Nay.
Alderman Turner,
Nay.
Alderman Milner,
Aye.
Alderman Dickerson,
Nay.
Alderman Bockelman is absent.
Thank you. Council Bill 73 will be taken up at the next Board of Aldermen meeting, November 18th. Council Bill 74.
Council Bill 74, fiscal year 2020 budget. An ordinance adopting an operating budget for the city of Harrisonville, Missouri for the fiscal year January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020.
This ordinance would, puts in place the budget that we've been discussing for the past month or so. It would take effect January 1 and go through December 31 of next year, 2020. We have had discussions on this, including as recently as the workshop prior to this meeting. There were a few issues raised. The board discussed those and voted on them. So this proposed budget reflects all the items that we've discussed previously. The budget also, I would note, reflects the electric and sewer rate changes that we discussed on the last two council bills. Obviously, if those are not included, we would have to delete some of our expenditures. But the budget is as proposed.
Okay, so that's first reading only. So move on to Alderman and committee reports. Alderman Dorhoff.
We had a great showing for our town hall meeting Saturday. Learned a lot about the proposed dog park that they're raising funds for, so they're well on their way. They're about 10% raised so far, so wishing them the best of luck and looking forward to taking my dogs there.
Thank you. Alderman Milner.
I have nothing.
there.
Oh, sorry. Forget what I said.
We had a great meeting Saturday morning, and it was directed towards the dog park, and Chris did a magnificent job. Thank you very much, Chris, for his presentation. Also, with all the people there, they learned that those town hall meetings are a big, nice thing to go to, and they learned even more than the dog park. So, Chris, thank you again for your wonderful presentation, and we invite you to come to the next town hall meeting, which is going to be in January. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Miller,
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Alderman Dickerson,
Nothing?
Alderman Davidson.
Well, I have nothing.
Alderman Turner.
No.
Thank you. Mr. Tholen, report for the city administrator.
I guess as reflected by the agenda we had this evening, the staff's been kind of busy over the last while and a half on the development issues that Mr. Crow's been presenting and the budget information that we've been discussing here. So I did want to remind you also that our city offices will be closed next Monday, November 11th, for Veterans Day, as well as Thanksgiving Day and the Friday after that, November 28th and 29th.
Thank you. City Attorney Representative, Mr. Rodo, you have an update for us?
Yes, our office has just a quick update on the villas, the Harrisonville villas. I know we had requested information from their attorney a few months ago now. Our office has been in touch with him, and he's repeatedly told us he's going to get us the information to us. So we have not received that still. So we would recommend that to Mayor Bowman that you open up for a motion to hear the second reading of the ordinance that was brought up before at an upcoming meeting. I think you can make that motion tonight if anyone would like to make that motion tonight. As you'll recall, we have already had the first reading of that motion. The attorney for the Harrisonville Villas has promised us that in the next week or two he will get a proposal to us and the information that we've been requesting, but you know, we haven't gotten anything yet, so we'll keep you updated if we do get more information, but that's our recommendation for now.
So I'd like to have a motion to advance that second reading of that ordinance to our December 2nd Board of Aldermen meeting. That way everyone knows when that's going to be on the agenda, so I'd be looking for a motion for that.
Motion to move to December 2nd.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion from Alderman Davidson with a second from Alderman Reese. So we'll have the second. Yes, Harrisonville Villas. Just putting it back on the agenda for December 2nd. So did you get the motion in the second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
Okay, let's have a show of hands. The ayes, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the nays, 2. Okay, thank you. We'll add that to the agenda for December 2nd. Questions from the media? Nothing, thank you.
Make a motion that we adjourn to executive session pursuant to RSMO 610.021, hiring, firing, or discipline of employees, and receiving purchase or sale of real estate.
Roll call, please. I'm sorry.
Or did we not do a second? I'm sorry. Alderman Dickerson? Aye. Alderman Davidson?
Aye.
Alderman Reese?
Aye.
Alderman Miller?
Aye.
Alderman Dorhoff?
Aye.
Alderman Milner?
Aye.
Alderman Turner?
Aye.
And Alderman Bockelman is absent.
Thank you. We're adjourned to executive session.